Alright, so if I was forced to recommend only one smartwatch to every Android user, it just might be this one. This is the Oneplus Watch 2R, and this thing crosses off a lot of boxes. And there's even one thing it does insanely better than anything remotely close to its price. Now, there are some things that could be a bit better for the more advanced users out there, and we'll definitely get into that. But on a large scale, I think it has pretty much everything the average user needs. It comes in at $239, which makes it cheaper than the Pixel Watch, makes it cheaper than the Galaxy Watch, and definitely cheaper than the Apple Watch. As far as the internals, it's essentially the exact same as the bigger brother, the OnePlus Watch 2. The chipset, the battery, storage, RAM, it's all the same. So the differences are on the exterior. With the lower price point, there are some compromises as far as the materials. There's no stainless steel, no sapphire crystal glass, which are some of the finishes that you get on the regular Watch 2. Now, as far as size, it only comes in 46mm, which could be a bit large for those with smaller wrists. Just like the Watch 2, it has a 1.43-inch AMOLED display with a peak brightness of 600 nits, and then you have a 2-button layout with a dedicated button for your apps and a dedicated button for fitness tracking. It also meets 5 ATM and IP68 standards, so it can definitely withstand even the most extreme environments. Another reason I'd recommend the 2R is because it runs Wear OS by Google. For Android users, this makes it extremely easy to hit the ground running. It comes pre-fitted with a lot of the apps that people use on a regular basis: Google Assistant, Google Maps, Google Wallet, Google Calendar. They're already installed, ready to go. Now, the one thing this watch does insanely well, and the main reason that I would recommend it, is battery life. It has a 500 milliamp hour battery, which is bigger than any of its main competitors, except the brand new Galaxy Watch Ultra and the Apple Watch Ultra, which are obviously much more expensive. And OnePlus claims you can get 100-hour battery life using the default mode. So that's without power saving turned on, which is a pretty big deal because most of the smartwatches that I've tested will get you about 48 hours with moderate use. I put the 2R up against my Galaxy Watch 6 to see if that 100-hour claim is actually true, and long story short, it didn't disappoint. I wore both watches for the same amount of time, I got all the same notifications, I did all the same activities, I didn't use always on display with either of the watches, and I'm not somebody that sleeps wearing a watch, so at night I pretty much just left them on my nightstand. Day one, I started off with both watches at 100%. By the start of day two, the 2R was at 73% and the Galaxy Watch 6 was at 44%. By the start of day 3, the 2R was at 57% and the Galaxy Watch 6 was completely dead. By the start of day 4, the 2R was at 41%. OnePlus is definitely telling you the truth when they say you can get 100-hour battery life. And keep in mind, this is on the standard mode. With power saving mode, they estimate you can get up to 12 days on a single charge. And then you have 7.5 watt fast charging, which will give you a full charge in roughly 60 minutes. Now, obviously mileage will vary depending on your settings and how you use the watch. If you're an extreme athlete, you're training for a marathon, you're constantly using GPS, you're probably not going to get the full 100 hours, but you're definitely going to get a lot more compared to the competition. If any of you have looked into the regular Watch 2, then you know the magic behind the battery life is the dual chip architecture. Just like the Watch 2, the 2R has 2 separate chips that handle the processing. It has a Snapdragon W5 chip and a BES 2700 chip, both running completely separate operating systems. The W5 chip only kicks in when it needs to do some of the heavy lifting, and the BES 2700 stays running in the background, taking care of some of the lighter duty tasks. This is what allows the 2R to be so efficient with its power management. Something else the 2R has going for it is dual frequency GPS. It has 2 separate antennas that pick up the L5 and the L1 signals. So whether you're in the city or in a remote area, you're going to get very precise GPS tracking. The 2R is also extremely easy to manage. It uses the O Health app, which allows you to change your settings as well as track your fitness all in one place. So you can go from switching up your watch face right over to checking your daily activity. Whereas with my Galaxy Watch 6, I use the Samsung Wearable app to manage my settings, and then I use the Samsung Health app to track my fitness. So again, I like that the 2R just has everything consolidated in one place. Now let's switch gears and talk about some potential drawbacks. The first one being no iOS support. If you're an iPhone user, this watch simply isn't going to fit into your ecosystem. Another potential drawback is no LTE support. There's only Bluetooth and Wi-Fi, which means in order to use the watch properly, you'll need to keep your phone around. Also, as much as I love the O Health app for being so simple, I do think some areas of it could be improved. Whenever you go and check individual workouts, I think it gives you a ton of useful information, but when you go and check your daily activity, for example, I feel like the layout is a tad basic, especially compared to something like the Samsung app. I think the Samsung app does a better job of breaking down the information and just giving you more information from a wider perspective. I also really like the option to add notes to individual workouts. So overall, the Samsung app just feels a little bit more advanced. A few other things to consider are lack of ECG tracking for those interested in their cardiac health. For the women, there is no cycle tracking, which is pretty standard on most smartwatches, and there's no automatic fall detection, which could come in handy for the more adventurous users. Aside from that, it has the basics pretty well covered. You can check your notifications, respond to messages, make phone calls. It's got over 100 different workout modes, not to mention the outstanding battery life. Is it perfect? Obviously not, but for the money, I do think it'll satisfy the needs of a lot of people. So that's my take on the Oneplus Watch 2R. Make sure you check out the links down in the description if you're interested. Aside from that, appreciate you guys for watching, and as always, I'll see you guys in the next one.